All right, welcome to CareSmarts 360 On Air, a home care podcast. I'm Mike Palladino, a senior account executive here on the CareSmarts team. As we age, our needs and abilities can evolve. For some seniors, living independently becomes challenging, prompting a search for senior living options. This is where finding the right assisted living or memory care solution becomes crucial. These communities offer varying levels of support. Assisted living provides a safe and supportive environment with help for daily tasks like bathing and medication management, while still promoting independence. Memory care, designed for those with dementia, offers specialized, care focusing on cognitive stimulation that is, safety measures to prevent wandering, and staff trained to really understand dementia-related challenges. The significance lies in the impact on the quality of life. The right assisted living community allows seniors to maintain independence while receiving the necessary assistance, fostering a sense of dignity and well-being. It also relieves the burden on family caregivers, too. For those with memory issues, memory care provides a safe and structured environment that can slow cognitive decline, manage behavioral changes, and offer activities tailored to their specific needs. This not only improves their quality of life, but also provides peace of mind for loved ones too. Ultimately, finding the right solution is an investment, and it ensures seniors receive the care they need while fostering a sense of purpose and well-being, allowing them to live a fulfilling life in their golden years. In today's episode, we have Brent Hensley on the panel, who is the owner of Assisted Living Locators, which provides senior placement and referral services in the United States. Welcome to CareSmarts 360 On Air, Brent.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. And I do a lot of these as we kind of talked about offline, but I'm really excited to learn more about your experiences today and a lot of your expertise in the industry. As you know, probably more than most, it's a tough gig, working with the elderly, working with the seniors, as well as they, transition into those later stages of life, providing support for those that are going through some of those challenges, even the families, and alleviating some of the stress that comes with it, I think is a very important topic. And that's why me personally, I'm very excited to speak with you about it today. And I'm sure that our audience listening in, is going to also find a lot of value in what you have to share today as well.
Great. Let's
Yeah.
get into it.
Yeah, so just a couple of questions to ask you, Brent. And really the first one I wanted to ask you more about is for families considering assisted living for a loved one, what are some of the key factors to consider when evaluating different communities?
Okay. Well, I would say first and foremost, first the caveat, unless the senior is going into an assisted living community and they're totally independent, they have no care needs, then I would say first and foremost, quality of care is what you want to focus on. Obviously, a lot of the reason that people go into assisted living is because they simply can't live at home anymore safely. And so having a care team at the community that can provide the quality of care that the senior needs with, helping with activities of daily living, like you mentioned, bathing, grooming, medicine management, whatever it is. So I would say care is first and foremost. And then location is a big one. A lot of seniors have lived in the same area of their town or city for pretty much their whole lives. And so proximity to their friends and family and just the connection to that part of their community is a big driver in having, the location where people actually end up choosing their assisted living facility. And then costs. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. Assisted living in the US is very expensive.
Hmm.
Just to give you perspective, I happen to be in San Francisco, and so the cost of a studio here in San Francisco in an assisted living community average is around $6,000 a month. And then you've got care costs on top of that. So monthly costs are a huge driver in for most seniors in determining the community that they ultimately choose. And then another one I would say would be, I call it culture fit. So can the senior actually see themselves living there at the prospective community? And do they perceive that the seniors at that community are like them? So things like, what's the average age of the seniors in the community, or do they have similar interests that the senior might be interested in? And the most important thing, and obviously I'm a big proponent of assisted living, is the senior going to be able to make really important social connections when they
Mhm.
enter the community? You probably know this, but a lot of seniors live very isolated,
Yeah.
lonely lives, especially in the aftermath of COVID, where they
Yeah.
haven't regained those previous social connections. So the fact if they can go in to assisted living community, reestablish themselves, or establish themselves in the community and make those important social connections, it has a
Mhm.
huge impact on their physical health and cognitive health.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Brenda, I think you said something that's very important, and it's, really something that stemmed after COVID, where people lost a lot of confidence in the ability to be social, especially if they're elderly or immunocompromised or something, right? I feel like those components and those factors really played a large part in what it means to find the right center or facility for these individuals. I personally have an elderly grandfather that was exceptionally resistant to going into assisted living to the point where he's old, he's Italian, very, very stubborn, so didn't want to go and leave his house that he was in for 50 years, right? Kind of similar to the point you made. But we ended up finding a good solution for him, which ultimately wasn't assisted living, but again, it was the right fit for him. Because I think the most important thing is making sure that those that are going into a home or a facility that's providing assistance, they're ready to do so. And if they have that if they're able to recognize these things and they have that confidence to do so, they're likely to be successful, right? And I think that's a very important aspect of it as well.
I'll add in that I would say 85% of the seniors that I work with would really not want to go into assisted living
Yeah.
and remain in their home. So I mean, it's common. And as much as I'm a big proponent of assisted living, I'm also a proponent of, if the senior can has the means and can remain in their home safely
Hmm.
and get the care that they need, then stay at home. That's great.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
a lot of seniors don't have
Yeah.
the ability to do so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head with if they're safe to age in place. I think that's something that people mostly would prefer. But at the same time, a lot of the reasons why individuals go find themselves in assisted living is because they need that extra support, or they aren't able to equip their house with what they need to live comfortably, right? Or have that social aspect, which we all know, and you would definitely know better than me, those that do have those cognitive, like the memory loss and the dementia, that kind of thing, being in a social setting that allows them to be able to use those cognitive skills more frequently. If they're at home alone, they're deteriorating more quickly, right? They don't use those natural abilities in their mind that they still have access to, and just exercising those kind of muscle memories type thing is something that helps them age more gracefully, right? And kind of ease their way into that stage of life. And that's something that I guess can't be understated in an assisted living center as well. I used to volunteer a lot in assisted living, and that was one thing that I found worked exceptionally well when I would go and spend my time there. Doing things like playing cards or doing something that was engaging for them either brought back old memories and they were able to tell stories, or it helped them kind of reset themselves into more of a social setting again, right? And that was just my personal experience, but I think it's a highly relevant one, right? And you probably see that often as well.
Yeah, I call it senior peer pressure. It's like a senior going back into grade school or high school
Yeah.
when they first transition into the community. They see other seniors like themselves participating in activities
Yeah.
and trying new things, and so they're encouraged to do it because other seniors are doing it. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, it's a great perspective, right? It's like it kind of alleviates some of that social pressure, the peer pressure of like, oh, I can't do this, but I see somebody else doing it. It's like, oh, maybe I can do it, right? So it's kind of, the whole monkey see, monkey do idea that we tell children,
Right, right.
right? That's again, a fantastic perspective. Brent, the next question that I wanted to ask you is, can you offer any advice on navigating the costs of assisted living and memory care? And are there any financial resources that are available to help families in these situations?
So my biggest piece of advice would be to really plan ahead. So understanding what the costs and options for assisted living are in your area before you or your loved one actually need assisted living. Often the seniors or family members that I work with, they only start really looking at what their options are when there's a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Maybe the senior has fallen and they're in the hospital, or maybe they're in the rehab, or something's not working. And so the family then comes to me and there's this sort of pressure to things have to happen on a very quick timeline.
Yeah.
And when you do that, then of course your choices are more limited, and then the
Yeah.
costs of going in the community are going to go up. So planning ahead is huge. And then I would also say, in part of that planning, understanding what Medicare and Medicaid cover in your state. So I happen to be in
Yeah.
California. So Medicare, unfortunately, does not cover any assisted living costs. So seniors really are, they have to pay for assisted living either with their financial resources or long-term care insurance.
Hmm.
If the senior is lower income, then Medi-Cal, which is our version of Medicaid
Hmm.
in other states, is really the only option for them. And
Yeah.
skilled nursing is what Medi-Cal covers. And a lot of seniors at that point don't need nursing level of care. That's 24/7, type of care. And so, fortunately, in California, in terms of resources, there's a couple of programs that the state has put in place. And the focus of these programs are really for those lower income people on Medi-Cal
Hmm.
that are forced to go into skilled nursing that don't need skilled nursing level care, to put them into assisted living, give them access financially. So one is assisted living waiver program. Certain counties in California offer that. And then there's a new program called Master Care that is focusing on this problem. And again, I mean, ultimately, it's a money-saving mechanism for the state, but the senior does benefit because they're not going into skilled nursing when they actually don't need that level of care,
Yeah.
and it gives them access to assisted living.
Yeah.
Um, Gosh, another one would be that a lot of people don't know about is there's something called the Veterans Aid and Attendance Benefit. So veterans who served active military duty for at least 90 consecutive days and at least one full day during a time of war, and they meet certain financial and income requirements, they can receive this benefit from the VA that
Wow.
can actually help them pay for their assisted living. So for a lot of veterans that don't have financial means to pay for assisted living, this is a huge benefit. And then I guess this is the last one would be, this is a little bit of a self plug, but I highly encourage families and seniors to work with a senior living placement professional like myself so that
Hmm.
they understand the various options available to them at their price point. There's like you mentioned with your own family, there's different options. There's
Yeah.
what we call in California board and cares, which is a private home that's been converted into an assisted living home. It has a license to provide care. It's a smaller, more intimate environment. That might be the right solution. Or it could be a more traditional, medium to large size assisted living building that has a, larger number of residents. So, it really depends. And, there's some communities, at least in my territory here in San Francisco, that offer below market rate programs. So if the senior qualifies for the program from a financial standpoint, then they're offering units in their building at a much lower rate than the
Yeah.
list price. And so most people don't really are not aware of these nuances in the market. So if you work
Yeah.
with a placement professional, they're going to be able to cue you into to those different offers.
Yeah. You know what? I think self-plug or not, I think that's kind of the purpose though, right? I think we need others to understand the resources available to them because, I admittedly am somebody who likes to research on my own and think that I know everything until I don't, right? Whereas I think, as you get more experience and you kind of get more in general knowledge about certain things you're talking about or the industries you're working in, you also recognize that you don't know what you don't know. And that's where professionals like you come in, where when somebody is, at that point of deciding what is the best, care to be provided for them. Is it an ALP? Is it assisted living, group homes? Is it in my own house? Can we equip it for that? Some of these things are just not answers we're able to find on our own. So working with professionals like you that specialize in finding the right fit cost-wise based on their needs, maybe defining what is skilled care versus non-skilled care, right? I think those are exceptionally important and ultimately will lead to people having more positive care outcomes when they find the right place for them, right? Where families are more at ease, the clients themselves are happier. And again, I'm going to repeat this, but they're aging more gracefully in these, the golden years, right? And I think that's really important. And sometimes we don't have that luxury of time, like you mentioned. A lot of people plan for these things, and we kind of just do it when we realize that it's a thing that needs to be done. But if we can give ourselves those, that extra time to really work with professionals to find the best fit, it really works out more positively in the end, more often than it doesn't.
Yeah, I say to my clients all the time, come to me now when you don't need assisted living. Let's get you educated on what your options are. And then further down the road, as you age in place, come back to me, when the time is right. But at
Yeah.
least you have some education around what the options are.
Yeah, being proactive, and really you can apply this to most things. Being proactive is the best way to set yourself up for success, right? And that applies to life in general, typically, but in the context of what we're talking about, like you said, having somebody like you to work with, ask questions to, prepare for it. Well, when the time comes, that ultimately one day will happen. That's something that we can at least ease ourselves into, right? As a family of those that need that kind of service. All right. Well, the next question, Brent, I wanted to ask you, what are some of the most important questions families should be asking during tours of assisted living centers and memory care communities?
Yeah, one of the big ones is resident to care team ratio. So what does that mean?
Yeah.
And it means how many care team members are available at any time in the community in proportion to the number of residents. And so that ratio is an indicator to see if the staffing at the community is in alignment to fit the care of the residents, in the community. So that's a big one. Um, Emergency protocol. So God forbid an accident or a fire or something happens. The staff in the community should have a very formalized protocol on where they meet, how to evacuate the residents in the community. So, knowing that there's a protocol in place can give you a lot of peace of mind if, God forbid, something happen in an emergency in the community. And then another big one that's can be a problem is the executive team and care team retention.
Mhm.
So it's important to ask, what's the longevity of the care team or even management team in the community? Unfortunately, there's a shortage across the whole country
Yeah.
of for caregivers, and that impacts home care as well as assisted living communities. And so sometimes communities don't have the staffing and they have to contract with external organizations just to meet the care team
Yep.
need.
Mhm.
And so, longevity and turnover can be indicative of bigger problems within the community. So I'd say that's a big one to ask.
Yeah, all great points. And I think, if there's consistency in the leadership or the management of the assisted living community, then you're going to find consistency in care, right? I think there's a lot of synonymity there. Whereas if you find, the people don't leave every 6 months, or there's not a revolving door of care. I mean, it's like you said, it's hard to really manage these things because there is a shortage of caregivers across all service types, right? In-home care, assisted living, group homes, you name it. There's likely a need. And that's hopefully going to keep getting better as there's more across the country. Hopefully more states really want to add more resources and support for these individuals. It's getting better at a snail's pace, but it is improving slightly. And hopefully that, helps with some fostering of change. But I think that's the most important thing you can do. It's kind of dialing back to the research component, do your diligence, look into the facilities, look into the centers, ask questions, be curious. And I think from my perspective, the best advice I could give is no question's a bad question. If you're thinking about it, likely somebody else has either asked it before or they're wondering the same thing, right? And you need to get those answers because you have to feel that confidence that when you pass off your loved one, they're going to be in good hands, right? And not, shouldn't have that worry or that wonder, right? So I think that's, again, a really important aspect of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Brent, we're kind of rifling through these, but that's not a bad thing. The next question I wanted to ask you is the landscape of senior living is, constantly evolving. What are some new and exciting trends or innovations in assisted living and memory care that can benefit the residents?
I would say the biggest innovation or trend that I'm seeing is focus on new technologies.
Yeah.
So technologies that are really designed to improve the quality of care in the community or keep the residents safe within the community. So one thing that's pretty standard, I guess, across at least all the communities that I work with are wearable technology, so that the residents can wear either a pendant or a watch.
Hmm.
And then if they were to need help or fall, they can get care immediately through the pendant or the watch. And then there's a lot of new fall detection technologies that are coming onto the market. One thing to remember, it's kind of a misconception with assisted living is um, falls do continue to happen at
Yeah.
assisted living communities. A lot of people are on the perception that that is eliminated when someone goes into the community. The falls do decrease because the actual setup of the community is different in terms of the
Mm.
apartment that the senior's in, the layout, the bathroom is wheelchair accessible. And if there's a supportive care plan that's watching over the senior. So falls do decrease, but they still happen.
Yep.
So these new technologies can kind of address that. So one simple one that I've started seeing is just floor mat sensors. So if the senior is asleep in their room at night and they try to get out of bed in the middle of the night, that sensor is going to alert the care team.
Hmm.
Oh, the senior is trying to get up. Let's go assist them. Maybe they
Yeah.
need help with toileting, and then they can avoid a potential fall.
Yeah.
And then there's other technologies that they're camera-based systems, and they use camera or video sensors to detect movements and motions
Mm.
that emulate something like a fall. And so once they're triggered, then the care team at the community is notified, and they can come in and just see what the situation is and hopefully um, respond if the senior has fallen very quickly. And then some of these are pretty cool. Have even been incorporating AI.
Yeah.
And so room sensors that detect the signs of the resident trying to stand. And then if the resident is trying to get up out of their bed or chair, then it alerts the care team. And the technologies with AI continue to learn and improve over time to detect things even more accurately. So it's
Hmm.
pretty exciting where you can um, preemptively try to prevent falls with this kind of technology.
Yeah, that's awesome. And as you know, we're a tech company here, and we love everything to do with tech, and especially as it relates to our industry. I think it's only going to help us. It's going to take time, especially there are some more AI powered programs now. We have AI built into our program that's more predictive for like caregiver churn and that kind of thing, which is a separate topic, obviously. But I think AI powered tools, again, are going to give our teams the resources and that predictive analytics to prevent things from happening, right? Like a fall, somebody shuffles in bed a certain way, right? That's indicative of maybe they're trying to get up. Okay, we're going to send somebody there before they have the opportunity to fall down. So that right there is something that didn't exist like 5 years ago and already is improving. So for me, what's exciting to think about in that context is what's going to happen in the next 5 years? What's the technology going to look like then? And that's the exciting part about it. And I think it all goes down to the same end goal of how do we make it as comfortable as possible for those that are in these facilities or in these settings to feel safe, right? And feel like they're in a good spot to, again, gracefully age.
Yeah. Another thing that I'm seeing also is, um, communities using technologies to help them manage their care, their staffing, that problem that I
Mhm.
referred to earlier. Um, Algorithms or just systems to kind of have predictive in terms of how many residents do we have in the community, what levels of care do each resident need, how do then we staff accordingly? And so having technology to help them um, really figure out what the level of staffing needs to be. That's a huge
Yeah.
problem, and using technologies could really focus on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. And these technology tools in place, whether they're operational or more practical or clinical, really they're evolving to give us that peace of mind, to make our lives easier. And even for individuals like yourself, having tools in place to give you information without having to work too hard for it allows you to be more proactive and less reactive. And historically being reactive is usually because something bad has happened or something requires intervention. And if we can prevent these things, obviously, from happening, then everybody wins, and we can focus on the growth of the industry and less the things that needed, a change 5 years ago, right? So I think that's a really good way to think about it as well. All right, Brent, the last question I wanted to ask you today is the needs of individuals with memory impairment can vary significantly, right? So how do memory care communities cater to the diverse needs of these individuals and really ensure each resident receives personalized and effective care?
Okay, so for your listeners who may not know, memory care is a specialized, I call it neighborhood within an assisted living community that, of course, is designed to care for residents with Alzheimer's, dementia. And it's a secured part of the community. It's separate, and it prevents that secured nature of the memory care neighborhood, prevents wandering. It's a safety issue from
Hmm.
residents in the memory care community. And then and those memory care neighborhoods really focus specifically and do programming for people with Alzheimer's dementia. So it's a special part of the community focused on memory care.
Hmm.
So really for memory care neighborhoods within communities, it's kind of a two-pronged approach. On the one hand, each resident within the memory care neighborhood, definitely just like in assisted living, has a specialized care program that's tailored to their individual needs and routines. It could be how many times a week do they want assistance bathing? What are their toileting routines? Things like that. But at the same time, memory care overall is very much the programming is geared towards group dynamics. So what do I mean? Residents are really highly encouraged to participate in all the daily activities. And it's a full day of activities. They, have them on a schedule from morning to go to breakfast all the way through the end of the day so that they sleep better and they just
Hmm.
have that cognitive stimulation. And also the activities are kind of done in a group dynamic so that the residents can mirror each other. And then it makes it easier for them to understand what the activity is because they can see what other residents are doing. And then they also feel encouraged to participate. And I think this is a really great question because every senior with dementia, the disease is unpredictable. The different cognitions and the disease speeds up at different paces for different individuals. So the memory care community has to really design their programming to cater to seniors at different levels in their dementia journey. Now, I
Yeah.
have seen it where memory care communities have segmented sections. So there could be a special part of the memory care neighborhood that's designed for seniors with more advanced dementia, and of
Hmm.
course have really higher care needs. But in general, the programming is designed to work with residents that are at different points in their dementia journey.
Yeah, and it's so important, right, to think about it this way because you can't, especially when you're talking about memory care, right? No person is the same. People have great days, people have bad days. You might think somebody's getting, on a different track than they were the previous day, right? So I think having more individualized care needs, especially as it relates to dementia and Alzheimer's, which again is a very unique thing to be managing and very tough at the same time, having the resources and the right fit for the individual, I think is ultimately so important. And making sure the environment, again, is a safe one, because the safer the environment, the more, I don't want to say laid back, but the better support there is within that community or area, the more likely it is that person's going to have more good days than bad, or be on a better track to be managing those memory care needs more effectively.
Yeah, another trend that I'm seeing on the memory care side of things is um, communities offering what's called transitional care.
Mm,
So, as you might imagine, going from, both for the senior and the family, going from home straight into memory care is a really tough transition. A lot of families have a lot of apprehension about making that transition for their loved one. So, I'm seeing where assisted living communities are offering even with a dementia diagnosis, they can go into assisted living. And of course, they have to meet certain criteria. They don't have behavioral issues. They're not risk of wandering or impacting other residents. And, that has to be determined on a case by
mhm.
case basis. But
Yeah,
if they're earlier in their dementia journey, there's no reason that they can't, with a supportive care plan, live in assisted living on the assisted living side and not go directly into memory care. And then at whatever time as their dementia progresses, then collectively they can decide then to migrate over to the memory care community
yeah.
or
Yeah, and then again, I think it's important to again understand the stages, right? Because it's sometimes things progress quickly, more rapidly, sometimes it's more slow moving, right? And I think understanding the gap between those two things and providing the best resources given the circumstances is what's going to allow those to have more likely positive outcomes as well, right? And I think that what you mentioned is the best way to think about that moving forward.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's a big issue because I
yeah.
will say of all the communities that I work with in my area, I'd say it's like 92, 93%, they're all full. And
Mhm.
so there's just a huge demand for memory care right now, and that's only going to grow.
Yeah.
So having more options for people, regardless of where they are, in their dementia journey is going to be really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of I think the last point we'll make on that is the aging population, like the call it the boomer generation, right? It's coming to that point where there's going to be a lot more of a need, right? And the stats that we're seeing show there's really a big gap in the resources required. So hopefully, with the power of technology, wearables, or operational platforms, it makes it easier for people to manage more with less. And it sounds scary to think about it that way, but I do think we're on the right track technology wise. I hope that with that, more people join the industry and provide the support that we know that we're going to need in the next 5 to 10, 15 years to come as well, right?
I have high hopes,
Yeah,
you know.
we have to.
Yes,
Yeah,
I mean, the demand is there.
yeah,
70% of all Americans will need long-term care in their
yeah,
lifetime, and a huge segment of the population is going to be turning 65 or older. So yeah, we have to really
yeah,
put resources to address
yeah.
the needs in our communities.
I say it's both a very exciting time to be in our industry, but it's also a very scary one because there's so much unknown, especially with like the demand and honestly lack of supply, right? So
Mhm.
it's going to be interesting and hopefully pretty cool to see how that how we bridge that gap. And I'm confident we'll get there, as are most people in the industry. But we'll keep our tabs open on that one over the next 5 to 10 years to come.
Absolutely. Maybe that's a future conversation we'll have.
Yeah, hopefully that'd be, I'm always open to those kinds of chats. I think it's important to have them. And the more people that are talking about them, hopefully it encourages more to get involved, right? I think that's really the whole idea of the podcast like these ones, right? Is to spread awareness, to spread messaging and pique interest, right? Allow people to think differently about some concepts that are ultimately going to be very top of mind very, very soon, right? So it's a good way to put it. With that said, Brent, I wanted to thank you for sharing such wonderful insights, and I'm sure the audience is, found these illuminating and got guidance regarding, navigating senior care more seamlessly. To you, the audience, thanks for tuning in, and until the next episode, this is Mike Palladino signing off. Thanks, Brent.
Thank you.